Hey, She Slayers, and welcome to the first official real episode of 2024. I'm your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunswick. I did not get dressed up for you today, so if you're watching on YouTube, sorry about the no fancy hair or makeup. But if you're just listening on Spotify or Apple, where most of our listeners do, then you don't care. You don't care at all. All right, we're starting the year with a really funny story. Really funny story. Okay, so I can't give too much description because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, and I don't know if there's like a legal case happening or what, right? You're excited. So we have a new employee, and she comes from well, she used to be a patient. She was like one of our favorite patients, and then she moved out west. That's all I'm going to say. And then she moved back to the area and now works for us. And we're super excited because while she was out west, she went and worked for a chiropractic clinic. So we're having our team Christmas party last week, and she mentions we're just talking about how like crazy shit that employees do, and stupid stuff that I probably should have fired people for over the years, but like I'm on my journey to being empathetic, which sometimes means whatever. Anyways, so she goes, well, that's nothing. We found out the massage therapist at our clinic who would massage patients at the end of their adjustments was licking people's faces. Right. And so we just look at it and we're like, wait, licking people's faces? I'm going to need more information. And that was it. So patients after their adjustments would be laying on the table face up, and she would massage them and then lick their cheek. And so how they discovered this was somebody said something. Who knows how long, right? So somebody said something. And so then instead, and this is where I'm like, I feel like I would have investigated further. Instead of like immediately putting a camera up, or I don't know, they just put up signs that said, if you ever feel uncomfortable during your massage or, feel uncomfortable, please let us know. And then they had multiple other patients come forward and say, yeah, she licked me. Um, so like, all right. So I'm just trying to picture being the patient. And obviously your eyes are closed because you're not a weirdo who lays with your face up and your eyes open. So your eyes are closed, and then, like, do we think this was like a little lick or like a big old sloppy golden retriever lick? I'm thinking it. Okay, so Kirby and I tested this, and I made him do it. I'm like, Kirby, I'm gonna close my eyes, lick my cheek. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I need to like imagine what it would like if I was, because if you knew without a shadow of a doubt that somebody licked your cheek, you would tell someone, right? Like, and so when he like did a quick lick, it kind of just felt like somebody took a wet thumb and just like, I don't know, like swiped my cheek quick. And so I could see where maybe she got away with this for a while. I don't know if you know this, but my first maternity leave doc, so when she came to like interview and like observe me how I adjust, she was like, oh yeah, we adjust the same. And I'm like, cool, that's great. I am like a month into maternity leave, and some of my friends or like friendly patients message me like, when do you come back? She credit carded my butt crack today. And so like I came back and found all these weird stories from my maternity leave doc. Yes, credit carding the butt cheek was like one of her main assessment techniques, which I didn't learn. I'm not saying it's not a real technique. I just didn't learn it, and my patients were not prepared for that. So yeah, they just let that happen. So I could imagine people being like, "Yeah, must be some weird end of massage namaste shit." So that's how people get away with weird stuff. So yeah, so we were laughing and hooting and hollering about that. Okay, so today we have a great conversation with Dr. Brian Capra. He is the CEO of Genesis Software, but we're not going to talk much about the software today. You will hear there is a new ad on the She Slays the Day podcast for Genesis Software. It is the software I have used since I started. So my first week in clinic, I saw 10 people um, and then grew to multiple clinics that saw over 700 people at one point. So like it grew with me. It worked when I was in full network with insurance, and it's still super affordable now that I'm not. It works with cash practice. It works with SCED. Honestly, like, I thank Lona Cook because she had graduated. If you guys don't know Lona, she's amazing. She had graduated like a year before me. And so as I was like, hey, this clinic I kind of bought uses paper records. What do you use? And she said that. And I was like, okay. And so I did it. It was easy. And I've never questioned switching. Well, actually, that's not true. There was a heyday in like what, 2018, 17, where I'm not going to say the name of the software, but there was definitely a software that was like super expensive, but like, ew, everybody used it. And now they're all stuck with it. They all know what I'm talking about. They paid a lot for it and they can't switch. Um, but I talked to them like, oh, you're the cool kid on the block. Maybe I should switch. And I started telling them about our setup and how we have 2 clinics and like how I can do my notes here or there. And they're like telling us all these like servers that we would have to install and what a pain in the ass it would be. And I was like, oh, no, no, I have web based. No, I don't want that. And literally their own salesperson said, like, maybe you should just stick with what you have until we kind of get more updates. I'm like, sounds like a plan. So the reason I actually approached Genesis, I'm going to shut up here soon, I promise. This is not a paid ad. I'm saying this for the grads, the new grads, people starting up a clinic, because I get this question a lot. I use Genesis. I like it better than the 4-letter female software because I've priced that out and it would be astronomically expensive and wouldn't work as well for my clinic. So I like that Genesis can grow with you. It's affordable in the beginning and it can grow. If you have plans of being a super successful practice, you're going to outgrow some of these other softwares that are super high right now. So I said like, hey, not enough people know about you. Like you're not the new kid on the block. You're the old kid on the cutting board. I don't know. I don't know what the opposite of new kid on the block. And I'm like, so I want to start telling people that like, I think you're a great software and get, new people looking at you more. So check it out. If you're starting a clinic, I've been there with them for 13 plus years. No plans on switching. Happy as a clam. I don't know if clams are happy, but I'm happy. So today we have, like I said, Brian Capra. Since its inception in 2004, Genesis has been a pioneer in using web-based technology, artificial intelligence, automated workflow, and big data analysis, which helps practices improve the overall patient experience, their revenue, staff efficiency, and provider compliance. Today, Dr. Capra continues to serve as President and Chief Executive Officer, CEO for Genesis. Well, I'm just going to call Brian out because that was a shitty bio on him. That was just you tell I had not read that bio until right now. So Brian's a cool guy. He lives in Florida. So I guess we don't know anything about him other than he lives in Florida and he founded a software. No, he had a really successful chiropractic clinic. Jeez Louise, he's got a lot of wisdom to offer chiropractors. I'm gonna have to give him shit when I see him. Worst bio ever. Actually, that's not true. So when I have guests on, he did follow the rules of like 4 to 5 sentences. I asked them like, can you please give me 4 to 5 sentence bio? And some people will just send me to a 4 or 5 paragraph bio. And I'm like, and I used to have to be like, okay, I will figure this out. Now, I just copy and paste it into ChatGPT and say, make it shorter, make it shorter, make it shorter. So there we go. Well, hopefully Brian and I are friends enough now that he appreciates I can give him shit. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to getting roasted. No, so all right, let's pray and let's get into our episode. Dear God, thank you so much for the blessings that we have on a day-to-day basis. God, be with everybody who is thinking about starting up their clinic or starting up something big and bold in 2024. It takes so much courage to step outside of our comfort zone, especially when we're comfortable. And so many of us, we get comfortable and I don't think that, I think there's a difference between being comfortable and content. I think you want us to find a place of being content with the small things, the little things, with very little to bring us great gratitude and joy out of this cool world that you made. Being comfortable. I don't see anywhere in the Bible where you wanted people to be comfortable. Quite the opposite. You ask people to get very, very uncomfortable who were comfortable. Like, I just picture myself if I was like a fisherman, make a pretty decent living. Or maybe that like tax guy, because he was like a money counter. And that's like one of my things where I'm like, "Ugh, okay, stop focusing on the money. And you're just like, leave it and come with me. And I'm like, no, thank you. How about I do both? How about this is my side hustle? Um, yeah, you must have been really convincing. So good job. So just keep on being convincing, God, and just keep on motivating people to get uncomfortable and do amazing things, and always in your name, not theirs. In your name we pray. Amen. All right. Without further ado, here is Dr. Brian Capra. All right. Well, let's get going because I want to be respectful of your time, and I have to get to my client. I have a employee leaving today. It's their last day. And you know, do you miss okay, welcome to the show, by the way. Do you miss that part of practice at all, of just like
letting people go?
No, I just want to be clear. She quit.
It's always better.
Yeah. No, do you
Well, what were
miss
you
the brick
referring
and
to? Yeah.
mortar? Do you miss like the brick and mortar, like day-to-day stuff of being in the grind? Because how many years has it been since you were in practice?
In ownership of a practice, it's been since 2006, I think, 5, 6.
Okay, so if we're
Been a
doing
long time.
math here.
Yeah.
Okay, I hadn't even entered chiropractic school. Do you feel like
Thanks.
yeah, right. Listen, I'm 37. I need to like find all of my references, or I'm like, I'm still so young and hip. I'm holding on to it for a few more years.
I'm glad I could help.
Do you feel, because like primarily you work with chiropractors, right?
Yes, primarily we work with chiropractors. Absolutely. Yes.
Do you feel ever like, because okay, so this is one of my fears. So as I have a podcast for chiropractors, and I have what other stuff? I don't know. I have an Instagram for chiropractors. I have random stuff for chiropractors. I go to the future where like my body doesn't really feel like adjusting that much anymore, but I worry about getting out of touch. How do you stay in touch with, or maybe you don't, like, I don't know, do you feel out of touch with some of like the pain points of current chiropractors and things like that?
I don't think so, because I think for the most part, they don't change when you're running a business, right? I miss, to kind of answer the first question. I think there's things about practice I miss. I miss the relationships. I miss the camaraderie, the patience, the miracles you see. Those things. I miss the energy of being busy and adjusting, and that just that energy that you like. We
It's a
all know
different
if you're
flow. Yeah, it's definitely
it's a
different
totally
flow.
different day, right? That I have now, where I mostly am alone, right?
Right.
I'm working, I'm on meetings. It's mostly Zoom these days. It's very, I don't want to make it like a downer, but it's like more lonely, right? And so it is a totally different experience. So there are things about it that I miss. On the other hand, there's things about it that I don't miss. It's a chiropractic it's a wonderful business when you look at it from a business perspective, but it is difficult, right? Especially when you're early on getting it off the ground, that lift. It is not the easiest business to start. If you have to pick from businesses, right? You're not selling cheeseburgers.
Yeah, even if you think about
like
different healthcare professions where it's like, I really want to help people. It's like, I think I'm kind of naturally cynical. And so like when I have a high schooler who's like, yeah, I want to go to chiropractic school. I'm like, yes, that's amazing. And then in my head, I'm like, should I tell them like that? No, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Do you know what you're getting into is what you want to say, because, as a chiropractor, I think what you're saying, it's different, right? It's different than whatever medical profession, where it's pretty much your success path or career path is pretty much, you can see it, right? If you want to open a chiropractic practice, you have to understand everything: marketing, sales, management, team building. Like, it's a real entrepreneurial business. So it's not that I don't miss that. I'm an entrepreneur either way, but those are the more difficult things with brick and mortar that you have to go there every day. Genesis allows me some more freedoms, which is nice.
Yeah. One of my frustration. Oh, I'm going to come back to that common pain points
Okay.
thing. It's in my head. We'll totally remember that.
Okay.
One of my big frustrations slash realizations, I feel like in the last 2 years, and I don't know if the pandemic kind of like projected it forward for us, but I think that there are such easier ways to make money. And that's what makes me sad about chiropractic because it's so deeply rewarding. Like,
Yeah.
my husband is just all computer, all tech and computer. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I'll have shifts where they're most days, I won't adjust until the afternoon. And so I'll spend the morning making
Mm-hmm.
reels on Instagram, in my emails, this and that. And by like 2 o'clock, I'm like, oh my God, if I had to look at a computer for the rest of the day, I wouldn't get anything done. And I was so glad that I got to like get up, go to the clinic, get in flow, music
Yeah.
going. So they're so rewarding. But like, I feel like social media has really made it in our face how much easier it is. There's these other, and just even like, you creating a software and being like, holy cow, I can make a lot
Yeah.
easier, air quotes, easier money over here. Like just if we're in an industry with chiropractic where it's time in exchange for money. And I think
Oh,
anytime you're
yes.
in that industry, whereas your time equals this amount, it's a different equation than when you look at these other industries where you're like, oh, time doesn't equal money.
Yeah. And, part of the problem with the reason that exists in our profession is because, you went to school, I went to school, there was no business training
Mm-mm.
on how to scale a business. When I went to school, it was like you have to be super passionate about chiropractic and live and breathe chiropractic. And that's still true. But it was kind of like the way you can be successful is it's all emotionally driven and on your back, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
There was that was their business training, right? um, but that doesn't have to be the way, right? There's plenty of docs that have scaled businesses and build them to exit, I wish there were more business training available to chiropractors. We have our practice mat. I think you go to
Yeah,
I
I'm
think you've
not
been
a
at
member,
TRP,
but
right?
I've
um,
gone once before and we're going again in January. And like right now, like I think that they're one of the best that we have. So
yeah, because they teach real business tactics, right? And
mhm.
training. And it's how do you build a practice to scale so that it's not dependent on you and you're not always trading your personal time for money, and build a real business, right? And build to exit and be able to sell it, a sellable business.
Yeah, the
So
problem is
that's
that in
becoming more
school
prevalent.
though,
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
school, so it's kind of like teaching, this 24-year-old how to run a business. Like, so I went to Northwestern and they did try. Like we had a business, I had to make a thing for the bank. What are they called? A business plan. That's
Business
what
plan.
that is.
Yeah.
And I had to like show how I was going to make money in that. But then real life comes and it's almost like teaching someone how to crochet in class, but they
Hmm.
don't have needles or in yarn. And then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
but like just memorize the steps. And then one day you're gonna get needles and yarn and you're gonna need to remember. And you're like, but wait, I have actual questions now. And so it's like, I think I do everybody, I think kind of rags on chiropractic school for like, we're not prepared. But I don't
Yeah.
know if there's a way to prepare us. It's like all of a sudden you get and you're like, oh, now I care. Now I actually care. And I realized that like titration levels in biochem didn't actually help me.
Yeah. I don't miss those days. Oh my God. Biochem was, oh man, that was brutal. But it's going to take an effort, and from people like you and me to get into the schools. One thing we're looking at doing with Life University, I don't know if you know Gilles Lamarck over at Life.
Yeah.
He We are going to do for students what's called a real life, pun
Yeah.
intended, real life business summit and just try to get some practical information out to them, exposure to people that want to help. For me, just get to know students, let them get to know us so that when they need resources, at least there's a community and a way that they can start asking questions and we can point them in the right. We might not have the answer to every question, but at least we have the experience to point them in the right directions to get the answers and to build an actual business, or maybe even more importantly, knowing who they are, where do they fit in this industry. Some people are not built to own practices, right? They're just not supposed to be. They're better as a career associate, and there should be a path for them to go and make a lot of money and contribute to a practice. So I think it's going to take, and is taking, and it's happening. I see it happening more, and I think it's really positive in our profession that people are trying to give back and give information and get the students exposed to what real life is like out there.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a reel that you posted where you talked about like how, and I don't know exactly know how you phrased it, but it was something like to be a chiropractor, you almost are forced to be an entrepreneur. And I really feel passionate about shifting that where it's like, yeah, if you're going to own a clinic, you do need to accept, but like this career associateship needs to be talked about more because we've just kind of trashed it. Like we've just made it this like worthless, you can never make enough money, you'll never be the rich and powerful true chiropractor, capital
Right.
TOR, unless you own your clinic. And it's like, that has to retire.
Yeah. And when I graduated, my associate position, which I'm very grateful for, it was for 1 year. And I think I made $1,500 a month. It was like something crazy. It was like they were doing me a favor to have a job
Yeah.
there, and they were in a way. It was an amazing practice. So the experience I got out of it was just, priceless. But yeah, it was basically there was that associate position where you made zero money, next to nothing, or you went out on your own and did it yourself, and you were lucky to have a job and get paid peanuts after going to school for all those years. And today it's different. It's you're graduating. I think that's probably a couple $100,000 in debt.
Yeah.
You
Like
can't go and
250.
make 50 grand a year,
No.
So, but I think it's changing. I think the associate game is changing. There's more docs coming out that are almost expecting that there's a job waiting for them, like for $150,000 a year. That I don't think that exists yet, but I think we have to start to realize that as in chiropractic, one thing you said is you have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to, but if you do choose to do it, you have to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because we need more successful practices and chiropractors. Like we need to have a larger capacity to see more people more efficiently, more effectively, because that's the only way we're going to have really successful businesses and be able to pay our associates really well. And that'll attract new people to the profession. If they see they can make really good money and do something really cool without having to own the business necessarily,
Right.
I think it'll grow the profession that way.
So want to hear my idea?
Sure.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm talking loud.
Yeah. So I think okay. So you've got the practices that submit to insurance, PI, or just like individuals, where their OVA can easily be $60 or higher, right? So
Yeah.
my audience and my practice, I live in a very rural area where 60% of kids are on Medicaid, and we are
Okay.
a all cash family practice. And I
Okay.
think there's a lot of clinics, like I said, my audience is a lot of the cash pediatric, we want to see entire families clinic. And so, and very like weekly, being checked weekly type of thing. It's one thing to attract a, white collar male to come in and get a 15-minute adjustment that includes stim and like this and that once a month, and he pays $80 for it. Like that, I don't want to say that's easy, but that's not the pain points that, I have. How do I get this teacher to bring in whose husband works for, the county, and how do I get all 4 of them to come in and get checked weekly when their combined income is, 120,000 type of thing. And so
Mhm.
there's 2 kind of things that I think for if you're in that boat. So like one, I followed this carrot that volume
Mhm.
was impressive. So
Yeah.
like I wanted to be able to go to a conference and be like, I'm high volume. I adjust. Well, I don't adjust, but our clinic sees 600 people a week and like, oh, like, and I'm trying to
Mhm.
get to 1,000. And that's awesome if your cost per adjustment and your OVA isn't terrible. But like, I
Mhm.
think so people who are in my boat, what happened is our cost per adjustment gets so expensive because you have to have a lot of staff
Yeah.
for, for that clinic to run
Oh,
well.
yeah.
I mean, yes. So in my, um, it, but that's one of the things I'm fixing is like, wait, did I need to have a lot of staff? And so then
Yeah.
trying to keep that weekly adjustment. And so that's kind of step one as the owner. I need to fix the profitability because I let our profitability get so terrible that I'm like, all right, I need another doctor. I can't afford to hire a doctor at $85,000. But that's
Mhm.
my problem first that I think chiropractors need to fix is like, okay, you got to fix that
Yeah.
because you can't be, and there's not enough associates to go around. So it's like, you need an associate. Step one, fix your profitability so you can afford to pay them.
Absolutely. Yeah, the volume thing, when I was younger in school and I saw all those big practices, I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing." Everybody did, but then when I started to see I'm not saying this is across the board everybody that did that, but, when I started to see behind the curtain, like, it's crazy how some of them were how much money they were hemorrhaging, and worse was for me watching, so for example, I had a practice, I won't name names. We had a customer, Genesis client, that was using Genesis, and the patients were coming in and super busy, right? Super, let's say it's 1,000 a week. And we were at the practice for an on-site visit. I think we were rolling out a new feature or functionality, or we're having meeting, whatever it was. And I was just watching all the people, and I just went into the system, and I looked at all of the people that came in, and I looked at when their next appointment was, right? And I was like, wow, how are they? And it turned out most of the people that were coming in didn't have another appointment scheduled. And it's part of the process to have another appointment scheduled in that practice. It's not like it's open to you just come whenever you want to come. And we don't even know if you're coming. That was not the process.
Right.
The process was at least it was actually booking them out for their whole care plan. So they're supposed to have a future visit. And so what I realized is that the practice was just luckily for a lot of the people that were coming in, lucky that they were there because they sold them on a care plan, and it was just tons of new patients. They sold them on the care plan. They came in, and then most of them just fell off
Of course. I was
um,
gonna say, I don't
because
know how
there's
long
no
that would work for.
accountability.
No.
Oh, it's exhausting for everybody. And of course, of course, the staff turned over all the time, right? So you just have this super driven for the doc that owned the practice, just driven all on him and his energy, and and it's just I don't know how you live like that, and it's just horrible for everybody that has to experience it beside them because it's horrible for the staff, right? Because they have no expectation of what they're really supposed to be doing every day. They sort of have meetings and trainings and huddles and all that stuff, but imagine the patients, and that's really where it sticks for me. Is that's their experience. Imagine if that was your child who chiropractic was going to save their life, and that's the experience they got, and that's the experience they'll have forever about chiropractic, right? The opinion, it's just mind blowing to me. That doesn't help anybody.
Right.
So the high volume thing could be good, and it could be a disaster for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So then the step 2 here. And so like
Mhm.
step 1 is like the clinic owners got to get their profitability better so they can afford.
Get it in check. Yeah.
Yeah. So step 2 is, and this might be like, this is kind of controversial. So you can say you hate this because this is just my idea. This is just my opinion, but it's my podcast. So I get So
It is.
So
It's literally your show.
it's literally that's what I tell people. Like, I started a podcast because I'm a verbal processor and my husband was sick of me talking. That's not true. He loves hearing me talk. So step 2 is I feel like we need to condense working hours. So I can have an associate, one that I can pay a full-time salary to, but they get what I need them to do, like basically the number of patients I need them to adjust before they would get to like that burnout. Cause there's a number, right? This is something
Yeah.
that a lot of clinic owners don't realize is like, you can have an associate for 40 hours a week, but they may not be able to adjust 100 people a day, 5 days a week. Like they get to a
Right.
burnout. There's literal number that most associates are just like, my physical and mental body are breaking down.
Yeah.
So figuring out what that is and getting it to like a 3.5 day work week. So it's technically they're
Do
adjusting.
you do that on an individual doctor by doctor basis, or is there a number that is general?
So I've talked to a lot of female clinic owners who've had a lot of female associates. So I don't know what the number is for male. And then obviously it totally depends on clinic systems, right? Like we're straight chiropractic.
What type
And
of technique you're doing?
exactly. I will say that in my scenario, it's 175 to 225 is
A week.
Yep. A week.
Okay.
So I say closer to 225. Another high volume doc who's had a lot of associates over time, she says she finds more 175, but they pull up x-rays on every patient. And so it's, I think it just kind of depends on what an appointment type is, but like, yeah, that's kind of what we see, And so then you go like, okay, can I figure out, so let's say it's 225. That's 75 a day, 3 days in a row. In my clinic, a 75 person day is easy. You're bored. And so like, can I hire an associate that I can pay a full-time salary, but give them a 3-day work week that then allows them this freedom to maybe do some of these more virtual side hustles or, like just have a creative outlet, whatever, where just their chiropractic doesn't have to consume all of their work week, where then they're not fully just dependent on their income from one. They can go do other things. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. What's my thought on it?
Yeah. You don't have to be nice. It's okay. If you're mean, I'll edit it out. No, I'm just kidding.
It's gonna be okay. We have to cut a lot of it. No. I think part of the thought process of a chiropractor that is going to wants to be an associate and make a lot of money, being an associate, I would, first of all, I was thinking about why you were talking about that. All right, 225 is it's what, 450 is 900 visits a month. And what you kind of have to back into, you have to think about what their salary is and then back into the number of visits or the salary, including bonuses and, all that stuff, and how much, you can pay per visit to that person. And can you make that number? What's the right amount of salary in your geographical area? In my area? Oh, okay. In our area, I would say in Wisconsin, and I post a lot of associate ads, so I can pretty confidently tell you that 60 to 75 coming out of school. 75 is rare. Okay. So if they're seeing 1,000 a month, let's call it round up a little bit, just to make it easier math. And they want to make 70,000, and they're seeing 12,000 visits a year. Right. So divide that. If it's 60, it's $5. What am I doing the right math? I don't know. $5 a visit, something like that. I would try to back into that number, 60,000 divided by, what do we say? 12,000 visits. So, yeah, that's an interesting way to go. Like, okay. Not that you're paying them per visit. No, but like, that's where you need your profitability. I want a live producer. I'm going to start making my husband be in the room because it's very math too. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it right. You got it right.
Fantastic. I could be like Joe Rogan, where like I could be like, hey, somebody look up that research for me.
People are going to start requesting Ben on cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
was the other question you asked me?
Did
Oh,
I
what do I
ask?
think about that? I
Yeah.
think it's tough because I wonder how that would play out because they want to be associates and they want to have a job and they're not most likely not entrepreneurial. So to tell them that, oh, you can make whatever you want if you also have a side hustle when they
Right.
already are not hustling,
Well,
it's
it's
like,
more the freedom, I think, actually. So, I am an Enneagram 3. So I would fill my side hustle with like, I want to make more money. Well, a 3 would start their own business. But like, I think it's more the freedom. When we look at this next generation of chiropractors, the number, or not even chiropractors, just this next generation, they want freedom. And especially if, we've got 50% of graduating chiropractors being females, I think that we really rushed into like, yeah, women, you can have it all. You can work full time and have your kids. But I hear from a lot of women that they have babies and then they're like, I feel terrible that I'm missing so much of them growing up. And so like for that person, that might be freedom to work 3 days a week and then have 4 full days with your kids where they're not in daycare. So like I think freedom is the number one thing that associates are looking for, and then money is kind of that next. And so if you can figure out a way to provide that for them, they're going to fill in. Maybe it's travel, maybe it's a side hustle, maybe it's their kids, but like that's my idea.
Yeah. I mean, we all want freedom, I think. Right?
It's a number one
I th-
motivator that people go to start their own clinic is they think they're going to get more freedom, more money, and
yeah,
more
that's a
freedom.
mistake.
That's a lie. And so that's where I'm like, hey, no. If you want to start your own
Again,
clinic just because you want to make more money and have more freedom, let's stop there. That's not a good place to start.
freedom, like in the sense that you get to make more decisions.
What a joy. What a joy. So great.
Which, actually I was listening to your
Decision fatigue.
what is it? This decision fatigue. Yeah. And that's a whole nother level of exhaustion that you could experience. Yeah. So there's more freedom. You can make the decisions. Well, that's a whole different thing.
Lucky you.
Yeah. So I guess, then this generation, like you said, I don't, it's kind of like they want what we've all wanted. I guess is from what you're telling me, we've all wanted more freedom and we've all worked. Usually, like you said, we're doing something and our goal is to get it to a place where we have more freedom. So I guess it's just weird that it's more of an expectation that they could have freedom and work less. It's weird to me, right? That's not the way I grew up. It wasn't possible. It wasn't a thing. Like, I want to work less and have more freedom. Of course you do. Everybody wants that, but it's just not reality. Now, I guess it's more possible these days. Maybe it is more possible I think it is more possible in chiropractic that you can be an associate, work 3 days a week, make $60,000-$70,000 a year. And that is not, you're not wealthy. I guess it depends on your area. You're not in South Florida. You're not
going to be, no matter
you're
what.
not free.
With that debt.
Yeah, you're not wealthy. You're not really, living it up, and not in South Florida, maybe in different areas of the country. You're doing pretty good and you're working 3 days a week. And if you want a side hustle, that's one thing. If you want to just spend more time with your kids, it's possible these days. That's a real thing. And especially if you're not the only income stream in the home, right? If you're married and you have another income stream, you could do okay. That's nice. And it's great to see the profession go there.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, because you're 50 something, right?
48.
Oh, so sorry. Oh, wow. We'll just edit that awkward. No. So
can you say that again?
Right. So you're like 37, right?
Yeah, 48. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So you're 48. I'm 37, and we're talking about like 25-year-old, right? So what I think is what I'm hearing you say is when you started, when you graduated chiropractic school, the only path that was really shown to you was hustle your ass off.
Yeah.
Scale, make money, then you can have a certain amount of freedom. And, I definitely, that was something that I saw. So I'm kind of in between where I'm like, yep, this is me hustling. But then I feel like we've got 20 somethings looking at our generation and going, is there another path? Because I don't want to do that. You look kind of tired and burnt out, and you delayed so much. And I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying we're right, but like you delayed so much satisfaction to a certain point and like missed out. And so I think that like they're creating this alternate path. Now, how it ends, like how their retirement looks, how their debt to income ratio looks, like
Right.
I don't know about that, but like I do think that's what's happening. They're going like, no, I don't need to buy a giant house. I don't need, and nobody's looking to pay off their loans anymore. Like I had a student loan expert on and like it's just a game now because they come out with like basically monopoly debt where it's like,
Right.
that's a fake amount of money.
Yeah, I'll
Like,
never pay that off.
no, it's
Yeah.
expected that they will never pay it off. And so like
Right.
it's this game of life that's just like, but like, I don't know. I don't know that we figured it out. I don't know that they've figured it out. I mean, they definitely haven't. They haven't lived enough life to figure it out. But
Look, I think it could be great for the profession if not everybody is out there trying to just, like you said, see 1,000 a week or whatever it is, because that's not good business necessarily. You could do it, right? You can do it and do it really well. The way it was happening in real life for the majority of it was not good. But there are certainly a lot of practices that do see high volume that are doing it the right way. But and that was the only option. Now, if what is, I think, shifting is, which is phenomenal. Like you said, the word scale, that was never a word even used. Like nobody even mentioned that word. What does it even mean? When I was a kid coming out of school, like it just was go work your ass off and get to 1,000 a week, and you're going to make a lot of money. And you're going to see miracles. And that was sort of true, but it's not really how you build a sustainable business. So I do see it shifting where doctors are getting more educated in real business tactics and how to run a real business and make it really scalable, and be consistent and look at the right metrics and measure the KPIs and look at retention, look at missed visits, look at patients that don't have future appointments, make sure you're looking at the right things and measuring it because it's a real business with real people and real lives and real experiences. I see it happening more and more that the people are getting more serious. I hate to use the word serious, like it's, such a downer, but like more, I would say acting more professional, right? Being real business owners and actually building businesses. That's great for associates because now you're starting to see, okay, now I've built this one practice and I have 2, 3, 4, 5 that run in a similar fashion, and that's real scale. And now you're starting to see a lot more franchises. That's real scale. And you're starting to see places where somebody that's coming out of school that doesn't want to own a business, doesn't want to work, 60 hours a week running a business. And they just want to go and they love adjusting people. They just want to go, they want to make good money. And not understanding that they're not a surgeon that's going to make hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And so I think it's going in a positive direction.
I'm hopeful.
And maybe that's why some people are going to school and expecting to come out and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
It is happening.
I mean, you are clearly, so even though you're not adjusting anymore, you are clearly really passionate about seeing chiropractors succeed. And like, I think I didn't straight up ask the pain points question, but I think we've already covered like 4 or 5 different pain points that, running a business has. As someone who your impact, basically. And if you disagree that your impact isn't going to be through helping chiropractors with Genesis, please correct that. But like, as someone who's like, okay, I care about chiropractors, I see their pain points, how I can help impact them is through this product I made. That's technology. How do you start to take these pain points and solve them with technology?
Well, I think you have to recognize what they are first. Pain points from, and it was me, right? I had all the pain points. The pain point for me was, like I told you, I worked in that high volume practice, right? And I saw they were great practice, but I saw some of the downfalls of volume, and I wanted to see as many people as I could effectively see. So, but what would happen would be something would happen where you'd be like, whatever happened to so and so moment, right?
I hate that moment. Fucking pisses
It's the
me.
worst. So that happened over and over and over, right? It just keeps happening. And what you usually do, what I consider like management by fire, is, well, they missed their re-exam, they never came in again, or we didn't forgot to do their re-sign, or they missed any visit and we just stopped recalling them, or whatever it is. You find out what the issue was with that patient and that patient, or maybe their finances are off or whatever. And you find that problem, and then you're like, oh, I wonder how many other patients that happened to, right? And then so you start in the old days going through files, right? Like, oh my God, this happened on 20 other people and we need to train on this. All right. So now you go and you train, and that whatever problem got better. And so that's not suffering. You're not, that problem is fixed for now. And then another patient, so-and-so, and you start, you manage by the fire, and it's not proactive and it's reactive. And from a business perspective, that never really made sense to me, because we're chiropractors and we're supposed to be proactive about everything we do. It's a shift, right? And being proactive versus reactive about your health. And that just never made sense to me. And I had an experience with a patient that was like devastating to me, because what happened was I woke up one day and his name was Chris, and I knew he was gone. Like dead? Well, yeah, the pre-story to that was he came to us one day. He did amazing under chiropractic care. He came in after just a short time under care, and he was taking Advil, like 12 Advil a day or something really high. And he after the new patient report, getting under care, he came in the office and he said, I'm feeling really bad. I think I'm going to kill myself. I said, what happened? Are you taking drugs? Or he said, no, I stopped taking all the drugs. I said, well, what drugs were you taking? And he said, well, I was drinking every day, and I was taking the pain medication. I was smoking marijuana and doing some other stuff. And I said, well, so you stopped all that? He said, yeah. I said, when? He said, as soon as I came here, because when you told me this was about more than just my health, it was about me being a better father and a better, husband. And he said, I knew I needed to change. This was affecting everything. This was affecting my relationship with my kids. They weren't doing good in school. They were getting in fights, and I needed to step up and I needed to stop. I said, well, first of all, your body is going through a difficult time with you just withdrawing from all that stuff. And you're probably trying to get to homeostasis. It's probably trying to figure out what is the new normal, the new homeostasis. And also we referred him out for help. But what happened was I woke up and I knew he was gone, and he was. And I asked him, how are you going to do it? And he said, I have a gun and I have a shed. And when everybody's asleep, I'm going to go in the shed and do it. You're supposed to ask that question, by the way, if somebody tells you about that.
Oh,
yeah. Because it tells you immediately if they're serious, if they have a plan to do it, and how they're going to actually carry it out. It's not that they're not serious if they don't have a plan.
Right.
Is that it's very serious right now, So that when that happened, I had gotten software and it got better, but it was really still the same problem. You're still
People falling through the cracks.
People are falling through the cracks. And
real
so
people with
real lives, real families with real problems that you could help. So my son was born. When my son was born, I named him Christian because I wanted to remember that situation, what happened, because I imagine that if that were my son, by the way, we messed up a lot of things. That's kind of the point of the story, really. At the end of that story, when I went and looked at his chart, we didn't do re-exams on time. His finances were a mess. We didn't recall all the right times. We did a lot of things wrong. And it's really is my responsibility, right? It's my fault, right? Everything ultimately bubbles up to you. It's really on you. So we got software and things were easier, but it was still reactive. It's still the same thing, right? So I had to solve that problem. I didn't know how to solve that problem. I didn't at the time, obviously. But it's God put me on this path. It's very obvious to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because it's impossible that all these things could happen in the sequence that they did. Even going to chiropractic school was somewhat of a miracle for me. But so I was just, torn by that, obviously, and just so, I want to say militant, but obsessive about procedures and processes. And because you can't avoid it 100%, you couldn't avoid it 100%, but you just could do it as best you could, right?
Right.
So I had another problem in the practice, which happened to be insurance collections. I was accepting insurance from my patients, so had a billing company, and they were basically what you do every day. I know this is it's mostly cash audience, but
I was actually in network with every single insurance. Like I was for like 5 or 6 years. If a person called and said, "Hey, do you take barnyard insurance?" I'd be like, "Not yet. Give me their phone number."
You're right. Yeah.
So I actually do have experience with Genesis and billing, so I could speak to that as well.
Yeah, it's important for people to understand, not necessarily to take insurance, but here's what happened for me. That I was outsourcing my billing, where basically, just for people that don't know, you're submitting a sheet at the time of all the patients you saw and their diagnosis codes and procedure codes, and they would create the claims, send them to the insurance companies, call if they didn't pay, look at your aging reports, and try to get you paid. And so some checks come in the mail at the end of the day with the explanation of benefits. In doing that, I realized that I was totally out of the loop on what was actually happening with the insurance collections, right? So it was like I had no control, no transparency on what that company was doing for me. I just knew that I was getting some money some of the time. That was it. And they would send me reports, every month, like a report this thick, an aging report in a FedEx. And I just had a stack of FedEx envelopes on my desk because
You're like somebody
when do
talking
you have
about
time to look
floppy
at that?
disks right now.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
They FedExed you a
Yeah.
report. I'm like, you're so much older than me.
Yeah, we had VHS to play the videos, and no. So that's just not a good way to do business. So it just by coincidence, my practice was in a Gold's gym. It was an awesome gym, awesome practice. And the bookkeeper came in. She's like, set up my books. I was relatively new in practice. I was like, thank God. And she's like, short story, you should meet these two guys. And one was a PhD in artificial intelligence from Bell Labs in Wall Street. And his son was a computer science graduate from Princeton University. And my practice was in Princeton, New Jersey.
This is 2006? No, you haven't
this is 2000, really 2000, end of 2003.
So somebody had a degree in artificial intelligence in 2003?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
No, PhD. Yes,
yeah.
yes. Yeah. Patents. So, the guy, it existed that long ago. And that's what's amazing about Genesis. One of the amazing things is we've been using the cloud and AI since the beginning in 2004. But here's where this ties back to the story about Chris. There was nothing proactively telling us what to do or what we missed, right? But on the insurance side, this is how I learned about it. The insurance side is also a problem in a similar fashion. You don't know when you're submitting your claims into whatever software you're using. If you can tell me right now, I'd be amazed. If you could tell me how many claims need to be followed up on, somebody needs to do something, take action in some way, shape, or form on these claims, this many today, I'd be shocked if you knew that, because there's nothing proactively scouring those reports looking for the action items for you. And that's what artificial intelligence, in that case, does, right? It actually finds the work that needs to be done and brings it to you. And once it does that, or somebody that does that work for you in your office, or if you outsource it to Genesis, you can see how many claims, right? So if you know that number, you immediately gain operational control. Like you can see every single claim, how many exactly, and click on them and see what needs to be done. Now that's insurance. And that's not why I got into this business. It just so happened that when I implemented that in my practice, my collections went up 40%. But what I saw was a totally new way to use technology to save lives. Because now, and the conversation we had is like, first of all, we need to have a partner. We created a partnership. We started Genesis. It was billing precision at the time because that's all we did was billing.
I still call it that sometimes.
BP. Yeah. And so it evolved, right? Because we created this massive practice management side of things, but all tightly integrated. So, but really it's a methodology. It's like a paradigm shift from, it's like the paradigm shift from, the medical model to chiropractic. It's a paradigm shift in how technology is used to manage the business, the practice, the business of saving lives. If you think about it, the way I thought about it, I'm like, that's the thing that would have helped, Right. And there was no scheduler yet. There was no notes yet. There was nothing. So we had this conversation. First of all, partner. Second of all, we need to build the rest of the system. They had no intention on doing that in the beginning, but it made enough sense because if you're submitting insurance claims, obviously you should know who checked in or who was supposed to check in, or you start to, it's really part of the, what's called revenue cycle management. And cash, there's also revenue cycle management for cash. But all those things that we could have known proactively, like somebody left without a future appointment that we would want the AI to tell us about and that we could see in real time and count the number of things that needed to happen. I was listening to your podcast about not transparency, candor.
Oh, candor. Yeah. Isn't my husband awesome, by the way?
Yeah,
that's my husband.
He is really awesome.
He's married well.
Yeah, he's a rock star. Absolutely. You guys have an awesome partnership that way. But the candor, like having the conversation with your team, like, hey, everybody's on your mission, but they're not going to own it like you do, right? It gives you an easy way to just say, hey, this is the stuff that we need to do to serve these patients at the top, our optimal way every single day. If we do these things that the system is telling us to do, because we told it what to tell us to do, then we did it. We did all the work. Insurance, we followed up on every single claim. We're going to get paid every single penny we deserve. With patients, it's real life. It's even more powerful, right? Because now you have a stranglehold on patient retention, right? And your revenue.
So retention and revenue, like that's kind of what it keeps coming down to, is you want to get paid for what you're doing and you want to keep the patients coming and paying you. You kind of like, you said like there's, and for people just listening, you kind of alluded that there's like this list of things that you said, like, if we do this, we will be successful. Or like, if we pull these reports to make sure we're doing this, we will have a successful practice.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
Reports don't work.
Oh no, that's the
yeah. No, I get it. And that's the old legacy way of using technology, is that was your only option. There's a difference between a report and action items, tasks assigned to people based on what's in those reports. Because in reality, there's dozens of reports that you have to look at every single day and check. Reports are not actionable. They're not accountable. There's a lot of problems with reports. They're good to have. If there were nothing else, but they're not, it doesn't keep anybody really accountable. So the shift is, okay, you have all these reports, but who's looking at all of them to find every single thing that we need to do or missed, right? Nobody, unless you have AI, you can't do that. It's the same thing with aging reports for billing. The data is already there. It's already in reports. Why do people not collect the money that they should from insurance companies? It's because they're not doing the work.
Right.
Right. So in business, in any business, there's people, process, and technology, right? And management, you have to quantify what needs to be done. That's like your systems, right? Quantify and delegate and then verify that it actually happened. So you know what your process is for new patients, for reactivations, for all this stuff. You know all the steps. They know all the steps. It's probably documented in your office, right? Somewhere.
Right.
Or it should be. So, but you've quantified the work and you've delegated the work. People know what they're responsible for, generally speaking, in your practice. The step in management that's most frequently missed is verifying that the work actually happened.
Follow through.
To the level.
I suck at that. Yeah.
The reason everybody sucks at it is because it's impossible to do on a consistent basis. Imagine all of the reports you'd have to run. Yeah. Imagine all the reports you'd have to run and how much time you'd have to spend to make sure everything you delegated happened perfectly. You don't have the time and do your own job.
Right.
So you have to be a manager and a doctor at the same time, and it's impossible to do. It's literally impossible to do. You can do it, and you do it on some levels. You have signs and ideas of what you think is happening, and sometimes you find a patient that is no longer coming in, and you realize some ball has been dropped for the past 3 months on half your patients, right? And it drives you insane. It is going to drive you crazy forever. So that's the difference between how AI is used in a practice and how technology was working for practices in the past. It tells you, hey, I don't know I think Sarah, I heard on your podcast, Sarah, you have 15 things to do today. And this is the things you have to do. And it's for these patients, and click on that task and do that thing. And everybody on your team has that list, and they just do it.
Oh, you're talking about the workbench, right?
Workbench.
Yeah. I don't even know how
They
to
have
get
their
to the
workbench.
workbench anymore. I used to be the person who went into the workbench, and now I'm like, oh yeah, the workbench. So if you have somebody who starts brand new with the software, that seems like, you know, one thing, but like, what do you guys do with a bunch of like old school people like me who, you know, maybe you've even just had the software for 3 years, but like technology is changing at such a huge rate. Where like, how do you help your consumer? Because like, I would assume, I don't have a product, but I would assume that one of the ways that you keep me happy is by like realizing the new things that you've created, basically for me. But how do you overcome that hurdle with your people to be like, hey, I know you're busy, but like, we did this thing. Start using this now.
And by the way, you asked for it. Yeah.
Right. Like you complained to me.
It is hard.
I made a thing for you. Now use the freaking thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I'm leaving. You don't have this feature. You asked for that and we built it. What are you
built it
talking
4 years
about?
ago.
Yeah. And it's been there for 5 years. It's not easy to do, honestly, but the way we do it and the way we try to do it is a combination, like our Facebook group. We are cranking out all the updates all the time, asking for feedback, having conversations, telling people, we're putting the videos out about new features all the time, putting the email blast out. We're actually going to start doing text messages to practice owners about, hey, there's this new feature, just click and watch. It's not an easy thing. We understand it's not easy because you have a crazy busy day too. And, you know, you might miss an email or delete it by accident, or maybe now it's going to your spam at this point. Who knows? It's not easy to do, to keep everybody up to speed, but I think we do a pretty good job at it. The other thing we're going to kick back in, we kind of lost it when COVID kicked in. We were doing live trainings in person. I think that didn't really, you can't replace in-person training, but
you mean like in person, like fly to this location?
Training. Yeah. Come on to Genesis training for a day, you know, and we'll just hit, you know, we'll have, what we were doing is like a series of topics throughout the year, and just keep cycling through them. And of course, part of that is introducing the new features, and just fly your team out. Don't be distracted, stay focused. And you're going to get something out of this, right? Answer some questions, spend some time with us, but we'd have topics, but we also need to do that at least virtually. It's just more difficult. There's just something about being live. I prefer to do it virtual because it's easier. It's more scalable, right? But we really need to do stuff more, get back to that since COVID.
Well, and I think chiropractors are looking for, you know, we've talked about TRP, like, you know, they're doing really well right now because they're one of very few management company. I don't know if they'd call themselves a management. I don't know. Sometimes I like use phrases that people get like offended. Like, I'm not a coach. And I'm like, oh, sorry. But like clinic owners are looking for great events to bring their team to get inspired. And like, you train my team. Can you just train them? Like type of thing. They're kind of sick of hearing me talk. So like, I would be pro you bringing a live event back.
Okay.
Just saying that if I get a vote.
Okay, you do. You get a big vote.
So, okay. So, the stuckness, like, you know, kind of how else do you help? So like you have so many people that are paralyzed with like, I just don't know technology. And you kind of talked about how you help them or how you try and help them get unstuck within the technology that they've already purchased and are paying for. But like another major thing has got to be people who are with a current software. And so, okay, so full disclosure, the reason I'm asking this is because I get frustrated. And I don't even own a software company when someone comes to me with a certain problem and I'm like, well, what's your software? And they're like, oh, I'm using X. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to help you because my software automatically does that. And like the idea of switching softwares is like, oh, I'm not doing that. Like there's so.
No, it's brutal. It's in your mind, especially because you implemented a software at some point and you think it's as painful as that, right? But a lot of times that was going from paper to software. But even switching, generally speaking, seems like a major lift. And it is. There's a lot of work to be done. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it that way, how do we take that work off the practice's plate is we have our white glove service, where we literally go and take every piece of data. If you have x-rays, if you have appointment types, if you have appointments scheduled out, we do balances, fee schedules. We'll go into whatever software that is that you use and do all that work. And that way your team could focus on training and learning the system, because in reality, what you're going to use is mostly going to be what you learned in the first 60 to 90 days. And after that, you're not going to learn. It's not easy to learn new things unless you start to come through user trainings, right?
Case in point, me. I use what I started with my first 90 days.
You know exactly what you knew the first 90 days and no more.
I don't even use insurance, but I could help someone on Genesis look at why they're not getting paid.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's it. But that's why user trainings are also important, not just to learn about the new features, but also, okay, like expand upon what you know the system is capable of, because there is so much it can do. You can't learn it all in 90 days. There's just, it's not enough time. But we lifted that burden it's making a huge difference for people. Once they know about it, sometimes people don't even get to us. Like they don't even schedule the call because they think, I don't care if it's better. I just can't imagine switching softwares.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I can't imagine that pain and I don't have time for it. And so they just kind of keep choosing their known hell of like, yep, I'm gonna just stick with this. What a
miserable way to live.
Well, that's why I'm like, I get so frustrated. So if you were talking to a group of students that were about to graduate, what would some of the all right, you're looking for a software. What are some of the key points that you would recommend in okay, when you're vetting out different softwares, this is what I would specifically look for?
Well, you're going to need all those things that, you obviously an appointment scheduling, something that, depending on if you're going to grow your practice, you're going to want all those reminders and text messages and all that automation, customization, and those things. You don't want to be limited. You need it really to help you be a manager of your business, not just a bunch of reports. I don't mean to be biased, but the reports are super useful. But I can only speak from my perspective in that I think what you need to have a system that can grow and change with you. If there are certain systems out there that are inexpensive, for example, but when what the worst thing to see is that they grow and start to see more and more patients, and it slows them down because they wanted to save a couple of bucks in the beginning. Now they're stuck on a system that keeps them from growing, which is the worst case scenario. And you don't want to switch. So it's better just to get on this. Like Genesis can scale with any size practice. Our first practice was 1,500 a week, our first customer. So it can scale to any level, but it also is perfect and great for a smaller size practice or lower volume practice or an integrated practice with multiple specialties.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So, all right, we could keep talking forever.
I know. We could do this again.
We could do this again. We'll do part 2. So where can people actually get more from you, more in Genesis?
The website is genesischiropracticsoftware.com. The Instagram is Genesis Chiropractic Software. On Instagram, I'm Dr. Brian Capra. You can email me, drbrian@genesischiropracticsoftware.com. If you want to get some of the ebooks and get in on just some information from the website, just put genesischiropracticsoftware.com/ebook. Like, for example, I have What Insurance Companies Don't Want You to Know. That's an ebook I have. I have an ebook, How to Beat Them at Their Own, How to Leverage Technology and AI to Beat Them at Their Own Game. That same kind of conversation also applies to cash practices, because it leads into the stuff I was talking to you about, like the patient that I had, Chris.
Yeah.
You'll understand by reading that how the technology can be applied for patient retention and all that stuff.
I love
as
that.
well.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your
pleasure.
time. And all right, She Slayers, go check that out. If you have questions, you can DM me. You obviously have heard from the episode that I'm not very technology savvy, so I will do my best. I haven't run my front desk in years, so I'll be like, I don't know. My front desk has it. But like, you can still DM me and I will do my absolute best to assist you and help you. But yeah, this was great. Thanks, Brian. We covered a lot today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was awesome.
All right,
Very,
She
a lot of
Slayers.
fun.
Until next week. Bye.
Everyone.